For 600 years, one empire ruled over 3 continents. It controlled Mecca and Medina. It governed Arabs, Turks, Kurds, Greeks, Armenians, and Jews, all under one flag. At its peak, it was the most powerful Muslim empire on earth. And then, within a single generation, it was completely gone. Most people blame World War I. Some blame the West, some blame corruption. But the real story of why the Ottomans collapsed is far more complicated, far more internal, and far more relevant to everything happening in the Middle East right now. Section 1. What the Ottoman Empire actually was. Before we talk about collapse, you need to understand what this empire actually was, because most people have no idea. The Ottoman Empire was founded around 1299 in what is now northwestern Turkey by a Turkish tribal leader named Osman I. That is where the name Ottoman comes from. Over the next 2 centuries, it expanded aggressively. 1453, they captured Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, one of the most significant military histories in the world history. They renamed it Istanbul. By the 1500s, they controlled all the modern Turkey, the entire Arab Middle East, North Africa from Egypt to Algeria, and Southeastern Europe, Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary. This was not a small regional power. This was a superpower, comparable to the Roman Empire in its reach. And critically, it was an Islamic Caliphate. The Ottoman Sultan also held the title of Caliph, the spiritual leader of Sunni Muslims worldwide. When the empire fell, that title disappeared too, and that vacuum has never truly been filled, which is one reason groups like ISIS tried to claim it over a century later. Section 2. The first cracks. The decline did not start in 1914. It started nearly 200 years earlier. By the 1700s, Europe was going through the Industrial Revolution. Steam engines, factories, modern weapons, modern navies. The Ottomans were not. They were still running a medieval administrative system in a world that was rapidly modernizing. And they started losing territory. 1699, they lost Hungary to Austria after a crushing military defeat. 1774, they lost Crimea to Russia. Catherine the Great humiliated them. 1830, Greece gained independence after a revolutionary war, the first piece of the empire to break away from within. Each loss was not just land, it was tax revenue, it was military manpower, it was prestige. The empire began borrowing money from the European banks to fund its military. By the late 1800s, it was so deep in debt that European creditors were literally controlling parts of the Ottoman financial system. There is a name for this period in Turkish history, the sick man of Europe. That phrase was used by Tsar Nicholas I of Russia, and it stuck because it was true. Section 3. The internal fractures. Here is what makes the Ottoman collapse truly fascinating. It was not about external pressure, it was collapsing from the inside. The empire had always managed diversity through a system called the millet system, where different religious communities, Christians, Jews, Muslims, governed their own internal affairs under Ottoman authorities. It worked for centuries. But by the 1800s, a new idea was spreading from Europe into the empire: nationalism. The idea that people who share a language, ethnicity, or culture should have their own country. This was poison for a multi-ethnic empire. Suddenly, Greeks did not want to be Ottoman subjects. They wanted a Greek nation. Bulgarians wanted Bulgaria. Serbs wanted Serbia. Arabs began questioning why they were ruled by Turks. And even within the Turkish ruling class, a new movement emerged called the Young Turks, formerly known as the Committee of Union and Progress. They wanted to save the empire, but their solution was Turkish nationalism, meaning instead of multi-ethnic empire, they wanted to make a Turkish state. This immediately alienated every non-Turkish group inside the empire. The empire was trying to survive nationalism by embracing nationalism, and it backfired catastrophically. Section 4. The Armenian Genocide. This is a section I will not skip because it is historically essential and deeply human. As the empire was fracturing, the young Turk government became paranoid about internal enemies. The Armenian Christian population in eastern Anatolia was accused of collaborating with Russia, the empire's enemy. What followed between 1915 and 1923 was a systematic campaign of mass deportation, massacre, and starvation that killed an estimated 600,000 to 1.5 million Armenians. Historians widely call this a genocide. Turkey's government still officially disputes this, and that dispute continues to shape Turkish foreign policy today. This is not a side story. The Armenians, the Assyrians, the Greek who were killed or expelled during this period were part of a deliberate ethnic homogenization of Anatolia. The modern Turkish state was built in part on that violent erasure. Section 5. World War I. The fatal mistake. In 1914, the Ottomans faced a choice: stay out of the World War I or pick a side. They picked Germany. This was arguably the single worst strategic decisions in the empire's history. Why Germany? Because Britain and France, the other option, has been chipping away at Ottoman territory for decades. Germany seemed like the counterweight. But when Germany lost the war in 1918, the Ottomans lost everything. British and French forces occupied Istanbul. The empire's Arab territories, Syria, Palestine, Iraq, Arabia, were carved up between Britain and France in secret. Most famously, the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916. The Sultan signed the Treaty of Sèvres in 1920. It was essentially a death certificate for the empire. Anatolia itself was to be partitioned between Greece, Armenia, France, and Italy. The empire was over, or so it seemed. Section 6. The Turkish War of Independence. But one man refused to accept it: Mustafa Kemal, later known as Atatürk, meaning father of the Turks. He led a nationalist military resistance against the partition of Anatolia, fighting Greek forces, French forces, and Armenian forces simultaneously. By 1923, he won. The Treaty of Lausanne replaced Sèvres. A new state was declared, not an empire, not a caliphate, a republic, the Republic of Turkey. Atatürk then did something radical. He abolished the caliphate entirely in 1924. He replaced Arabic script with Latin letters. He banned religious dress in public institutions. He separated mosques from the states. He built a secular, western-facing nation-state from the ruins of a 600-year Islamic empire. That transformation from caliphate to secular republic created a tension inside Turkey that exists to this date. And the tension is exactly why Erdogan is so controversial. We will cover that in a later video. So why did the Ottomans really collapse? Not one war, not one enemy, not one mistake. They collapsed because an empire built on diversity tried to survive by abandoning it. Because debt made them dependent on the very powers that wanted their land. Because nationalism, the great European export of the 19th century, tore apart a system that had worked for 600 years. And the borders drawn on the ruins of this empire, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, are borders that people are still dying on today. Understanding the Ottomans is not history for its own sake. It was only way to understand the modern Middle East. If this changed how you see the region, share it with someone who needs to understand it too. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.